The Sound of Freedom with Jim Caviezel is an amazing movie that I really believe people need to see, and apparently people are, as before its opening they made $10 million of pre-sales, and is projected to earn over $40 million its opening week. But for some reason, the corporate dinosaur media does not want you to see it.
Because he doesn't really hide his association with this real wild plot.
With somebody like Jim Caviezel, he is openly embracing it. He's openly using its catchphrases and its concepts. He's speaking at QAnon conventions. And this film is being marketed to either specific QAnon believers or to people who believe all of the same tenets as QAnon.
Which is such a bizarre stance for anyone to take. Something that's a universal evil, like selling kids into slavery, is something that everyone should want to denounce. But for some reason, CNN wants to brush it off as some sort of tinfoil hat theory. Could it possibly be because one of their employees was accused of a very similar crime? Because I honestly think everybody watches The Sound of Freedom and gasps, "Oh my god, what if that happened to me?" We're imagining the nightmare of being the dad looking for his missing kids. But for some reason, they see the movie and relate to those pedos being arrested. So of course there's this huge media movement trying to discourage you from seeing the film, with Rolling Stone saying the movie is for dads with brain worms, and The Guardian calling this a QAnon-adjacent thriller trying to stop child traffickers in a paranoid movie, despite the fact that this same publication, just 5 years ago, wrote an entire article about how much of a problem child trafficking is, despite the fact that this same publication also wrote a review on that Cuties movie on Netflix, calling it bold and misunderstood. And they're not the only ones, as the Washington Post wants to link the movie to QAnon, while they previously also tried to put a positive spin on Netflix's Cuties. You know, the same Netflix that apparently passed on The Sound of Freedom, but had no problem buying Cuties. And quick spoiler for this video, if you thought that was bad, it gets worse and just keeps getting worse. Because if the corporate dinosaur media is trying to convince you that Cuties is good, but The Sound of Freedom is bad, and if you disagree with that, you're siding with some spooky conservative movement, I think a lot of regular people will just say, alright, get me those Viking horns then, because you can't shame me into turning against my own morals. Because when you look at the Wikipedia for the film, apparently they completed the movie in 2018 and had a distribution deal with 20th Century Fox, but when the studio was purchased by Disney, they shelved the film. Now, why would Disney go and do that? Now, the wiki on the film actually goes into the controversies, how groups criticize Operation Underground Railroad's attempts to save kids, most notably that their rescue likely traumatized the trafficked kids. And Vice also criticized Tim Ballard's operation for very similar reasons, but also highlighting that it's backed by Donald Trump, which yes, it did appear that Ballard had the ear of President Trump.
They brought this little girl through a part of the southern border where there was no wall, easily got her to New York City, and this is hard to hear, but this is the truth, and everyone needs to hear this. This little girl, and this is very typical, for money every day, 30 to 40 times a day. This little boy was kidnapped in Mexicali, Mexico, where there was a wall, where there is a barrier, and so he was forced to take this little boy through the Calexico port of entry, and guess what? It worked. We captured him. We rescued the little boy, and subsequently rescued 12 other children in San Bernardino, California.
But what a horrible, immoral way to live your life. Anything can be bad if the orange man's behind it, because tribalism should end where a kid's safety begins. If Kamala Harris, as VP right now, starts passing laws that capture traffickers at the border and puts them on death row, and then right after we actually see immediate prosecutions, I somehow doubt that Tucker Carlson and Tim Pool are going to come out against that move. But somehow the mainstream left-wing media can see actual stories of trafficking today, videos of trafficking in other countries, just like the scenes from The Sound of Freedom, and even back in 2014, run fluff pieces on Tim Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad.
The police had help from an American who went undercover to rescue the children.
Tim Ballard has one mission: to track down child traffickers, arresting 5 suspects, 4 men, and 1 former beauty queen. The victims, 29 of whom are under 18, were evacuated, given medical exams, and placed in a rehabilitation center where specialists are working to undo the damage.
But nah, the corporate dinosaur media has just turned into this.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true.
It's extremely dangerous to our democracy. democracy.
So when CNN ran their segment convincing me not to see it, I immediately bought a ticket to go see it in theaters the next day. So I'm not much of a film critic because I'm the type of guy that unironically liked the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, but I would say The Sound of Freedom is just like the movie Taken if it was a long-winded indie film. So it's an entirely different experience than, say, John Wick 4. But my theater was filled with people crying throughout with lots of applause after it ended, and that's just not something I've ever seen in the movies. So now the film is trending on Twitter, with even Elon Musk replying to the trailer, offering to put the movie on his platform for free.
Elon Musk, he actually tweeted out a couple weeks ago with the trailer, and it opened up Twitter as a free home for distribution. We're going to see a Twitter release, I think mid-July.
Even the UFC's Dana White is buying tickets for his people to see it.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give any of my UFC employees that want to see this movie free tickets to go see. And I would like to encourage other executives to do the same at their company.
And if you go to angel.com/tickets, you can also buy a ticket for someone that can't afford to buy their own. And that's exactly what I will be doing. So if you want to see the film in theaters, you can go to the website that I put in the description box down below and request a free ticket. Or if you'd like, you can pay it forward and buy a ticket for someone else. Because it's not going to be like seeing Super Mario Bros. Or Creed 3. There's just something about witnessing a movie firsthand that the entire mainstream narrative is collectively trying to prevent you from seeing. So if you appreciate my concise, lighthearted commentary on what's really going on in the world, hopefully I've earned your subscription, then go check out my video on what happens when one left-wing privilege movement collides with another left-wing privilege movement.